your reaction, I suppose, to that initiative, and we can then talk about the scale of footprint of data centers in your state.
Yeah, it's important to understand where it's coming from. I don't support a full data center moratorium at all, but I do think there's a lot of frustration in communities like mine when it comes to data centers steamrolling communities and having siting issues where they create power problems in those communities. And so if we did a comprehensive look at where we should be siting data centers across the country, what would be best for industry, what would be best for the communities, I think you would actually allay a lot of the concerns that people who are supporting data center moratoriums have about these data centers.
You represent a region that you cannot understate the footprint there. 70% of the world's internet traffic flowing through servers inside what are essentially tin cans. But
if my district were a country, it would be one of the top 5 countries in terms of number of data centers and the amount of internet running through it.
What therefore, is your position and how you represent your constituents? Because there is a split, right? NIMBY is one pocket. There is job creation. There is economic value created from the build-out that we're seeing.
Well, the data centers don't create a lot of jobs, but the local government likes it because they create a lot of revenue for local government and state government. They also don't create a lot of jobs, which means less traffic through those communities, less schools you have to build, less roads you have to build. So the local government loves it, which is why they keep approving them. But it's short-sighted because then you start to create energy problems. You start to have to build energy infrastructure through communities that weren't expecting it, didn't sign up for it. You lower home values. And people get angry about it, and rightfully so. It's more than just NIMBYism. I think people have legitimate concerns. But we can do this as a country. We can build out the data centers we need to build out in this country. We don't need to do a moratorium, but we have to do it with the buy-in of communities across the country. Because I know there's communities that want data centers that are coming to ours right now. If we had, all our data centers, it takes up more power than the city of D.C., and we're doubling the number of data centers. So we have too many in one spot. That's a national security concern as well. What we really need to do is just start spreading out the data centers across the country and getting it in place where community buy-in is there.
How can we hear from communities simultaneously? Clearly, we're hearing from leadership of big tech. Look, today, yet another technology council. The president is creating one at the moment where we understand Jensen Huang's going to be part of it, Mark Zuckerberg's going to be part of it, Larry Ellison, people very committed to data center build-out, to compute build-out. So how do you ensure that at the same time the voices of constituents are heard about these anxieties, about jobs, about what's happening in terms of energy prices?
We need to give them a voice in Congress, at the state level, at the local level. Every level of government needs to give their constituents a voice. And we don't have to be adversarial all the time to tech. We can work together and we can solve this together. But certainly we have to make sure the constituents' voices do have a say, do have a seat in the table, because otherwise there's going to be a huge backlash towards data centers. You're starting to see it more prominently now, right? Now you've got members of Congress introducing these moratoriums. You're going to see it even more prominently if they continue to steamroll these communities.
We had the NScale CEO on to start this week, which already feels a very long time ago. It was on Monday, talking about how they're thinking vertical integration and they're bringing electricity and infrastructure to the bear. We had Crusoe, the CEO, on earlier yesterday, talking about how they're also thinking about infrastructure and building it out. Are there innovative ways in which you can still have data centers being built near you without suddenly a price push, without a national security risk, without any detriment to your property prices?
Yes and no. I'd like to see exactly what they mean by that, because a lot of times people talk about SMRs, small modular nuclear reactors. Essentially, you need 3 or 4 of them for each data center. And who wants those nuclear reactors next to their homes, for instance?
Like NScale's using gas provisions via Caterpillar.
I don't know how innovative that is.
What it comes down to, Congressman, on the industry side, they would argue they take on the capital burden of grid modernization. They buy electricity in bulk, and that they would argue there's a deflationary impact for everyday people's energy prices. There's also a lot of Bloomberg reporting and investigation that shows in zip codes where there's a high concentration of data center, electricity prices have gone up and energy prices have gone up. What do you see, the real on-the-ground view?
Yeah, my home in Ashburn, Virginia, our electricity prices have gone up. And it's because we had to pay for that infrastructure. They're not taking that cost into account. So, yes, you bring more energy infrastructure, it'll, on long-term, lower costs. But when we have to pay up front for that energy infrastructure, it raises our utility prices. So that needs to change. We need to make sure that communities aren't subsidizing the data centers' energies. And, again, we can do this. A lot of companies are actually volunteering to do this, to be able to pay for their own energy infrastructure. I like that idea. That's going to help a lot. And that's the type of thing we need to be doing when it comes to getting community buy-in.
What is your view of your constituents and the American people's relationship with AI. I think Caroline and I have had a lot of conversations in the last 24 hours where AI doesn't have very much good PR at the moment with everyday Americans. One thing that Shom Sankar, he's the CTO at Palantir, put to us is that, you know, there's a distinction between what is AI slop, what people see in their social media feeds, and how they actually might benefit from it in their working and at-home lives.
You know, I worked at the White House as a tech advisor 10 years ago. AI was exciting to people. They couldn't wait to use it. They couldn't wait to adopt it. But they've seen the job displacement. It's hard to love AI when companies are putting out announcements saying, because of AI, we're laying off jobs. Congratulations to us, right? People don't like to hear that. They don't like to hear about data centers coming to their community and making them pay for the energy costs and energy infrastructure. So AI has a PR problem, but they've earned it because of the way they've talked to communities about AI. And so what we need to do is work collaboratively with government. I think Congress needs to get more involved than it has already when it comes to safety, national security, and communities.